Yeah, thanks for joining us this evening. This is a slight twist of turn in terms of rebranding our show on Notepad. We're focusing on health matters here right now. This is in collaboration with BizTech Asia. Our colleagues over there are going to start a new whole host of shows regarding health and wellness. So on some shows regarding health matters on Notepad, we're going to be co-collaborating some of the interviews with them. For tonight, we're speaking with Tan Sri Nazir Razak on prostate cancer. There's going to be a health or a medical professional in this conversation as well, joining us here. So enjoy our conversation with Tan Sri Nazir Razak on prostate cancer.
Thank you. Yeah, my journey started basically in late 2019. I had just retired from running CIMB then. And, as I was looking at my financials, my private banker told me suggested an insurance product for me. So I said, fine. But he said, look, a product like this requires some medical tests. So I did it. I happened to be in London then. I did it. And they discovered that my PSA score was on the high side. And then I had subsequent tests and ultimately a biopsy to confirm that not only did I have prostate cancer, it was actually quite aggressive. So I needed immediate surgery. And the estimate was that if I had left it another 4 to 6 months, it would have spread beyond the prostate. So, I was extremely lucky because I just caught it while it was still within the prostate. So that's the main message or main lesson that I learned, which is prostate cancer is eminently treatable, but you've got to discover it early.
So how did you feel when you obviously you were fit and healthy, there were no warning signs and so forth? How did you feel when that happened?
Yeah, it was a real shock because, as you say, there's absolutely no symptoms. In fact, when they said you need to have an urgent surgery, I said, okay, but I need to go skiing first. So I went skiing for a few days.
Okay.
So I really was very healthy. So it was very hard to believe. But as I trace back, I talked to my Chris may have a view on this, but I really related to a rise in stress levels over the past maybe 18 months before I discovered it. I don't know what the science is of it, but certainly I thought that was it. And I guess, I reflect on the scene when the doctor told me that I had cancer. Somehow, it wasn't quite what you see on TV, but nevertheless, you kind of swallow it. And I think I was kind of, I generally am at my best during the crisis. I kind of the kind of panic always sets in much later. So I kind of grit my teeth and sort of say, okay, so what do I need to do now? But more importantly, the surgery is something that if you have to do, get it done very quickly. And after that, I've kind of invested in raising awareness of prostate cancer in Malaysia. I really felt that I was lucky, and I want more people to be as lucky. And we have a real issue in Malaysia in the sense that the incidence of late discovery is at 60%, whereas the comparable global rates are more like 25 to 30%. So really, we need to bring it down, and we'll bring it down by, basically being more open about talking about prostate, and particularly in the rural areas, people tend to be very shy about talking about their prostate problems, their sexual health, etc. And that's really what I'm investing in now as my kind of give back, because I got lucky.
Now, Nazir, we're going to get back to that, especially around the 60% number. But Chris, I want to move to you now. I think one of the most difficult things that a doctor goes through is really about being a patient themselves. And that's what friends have told me in the past who are doctors. That feeling of powerlessness that envelopes you when you can't treat yourself. Could you share your experience with us, please?
Yes, I would love to share my experience as a patient and as a doctor. But before that, if you allow me, Brian, let me just say that it's very good for Tan Sri himself to share his story, especially his devotion to raising awareness. We'll come back to the 60%, and to answer his question about stress. Yeah, certainly in the animal lab, you could stress animals and produce changes in the immunity. And certainly in my experience, people who have life-changing events, sometimes we have, let's say, a recurrence of whatever it was used to be in remission. But as far as finding aggressive prostate cancer is concerned, I don't think the jury is, in for whether there's a direct link. But your story is not unusual in that somewhere at the peak of your career and you're just contemplating moving on to the next phase, and totally well, absolutely no symptoms, and on screening tests for insurance, or in your case, to trigger a diagnosis of prostate cancer. And in fact, your point is absolutely salient that prostate cancer, by the time it causes symptoms, actually is advanced. And therefore, don't wait too long. And if you have any symptoms, better go and see someone. Then I'll come back to my story, which is exactly that. So I had prostate cancer in 2017, 2 years before you. And I actually had a recurrence, and I had surgery in 2017, December, but I underwent radiation end of 2021 during COVID. So the other difference is that I endure many, many years of urinary symptoms. In fact, long before I was a urologist, even in school, I usually the last one to get out of the toilet. All my friends are out and I'm still there. So I later on become a urologist, and I realized that in younger people, sometimes they have bladder issues, kind of a shy bladder. So I tolerated the symptom, and of course, being a urologist, I self-diagnosed, and my PSA was okay many years ago. And according to our own ministry's guideline and international prostate guidelines, one shouldn't really screen for prostate cancer because there's quite a lot of overdiagnosis and over treatment. And since I had symptoms from long ago, I ascribe it to cannot be prostate cancer, from when I was 30 all the way to I was 60. But then I thought, okay, I tolerated my symptoms for so long, maybe it's time to do something about it. So I went to my mentor, Professor Fu in the Singapore General, and said, hey, can you do a TURP for me, which is a treatment for benign prostate? And then he put a finger up and said, oh, I think, what's your PSA? I said, used to be very normal, but I haven't done it for a number of years. And so lo and behold, aggressive prostate cancer was diagnosed. I had operation. It was quite high grade, and even bridging the confines of the prostate. And so despite having normal PSA for a while, it started going up, and I found a recurrence late last year and had radiation. So the jury is still out. What's the future? But at the moment, everything is fine, and I have everything I need to be happy. And I'm also devoting my time to raising awareness about prostate cancer. So to all the men out there, as Brian, you said, about 40, and you have any inkling that something is amiss, don't delay. I think men like us sometimes are living in denial. We are always saying that, oh, we are so busy with our work, our family, or our hobbies. There's no time to go and see a urologist. It is something we're quite shy about, talking about our private life. And so, I think it's good to have a check. And if nothing is found, congratulations. Even if something is found, sometimes there are two different types of prostate cancer, right? One is the aggressive ones that really should be treated. aggressively. And there's also the pussycat that can be watched. So I think one shouldn't be fearful about getting a diagnosis because there's still many options. And in today's context, Tan Sri is absolutely right. Better earlier than late, and do it before the symptoms become severe.
Okay, we'll go for a short break. When we come back, we'll continue on with this conversation. Thanks for staying on with us. As promised, this is an ongoing conversation between Tan Sri Nazir Razak on the prostate cancer situation, not just in Malaysia and not just to himself, but perhaps the landscape as well.
Now, Nasir, I want to ask you about, and Chris as well, about really the startling statistic that 60% in Malaysia are diagnosed at an advanced stage. And Singapore, it's much lower, 25 to 30%. I think the US, it's even lower. It's around 20%. Chris, how different are attitudes towards screening, perhaps, compared to Malaysia, for example?
Well, I travel to Malaysia and talk to my colleagues quite often. So I think it's not that different, actually, just a couple of years. I think when we first started collating our statistics, we were like 75% advanced stage. That means by the time it's diagnosed, it's spread to the bones and usually it's palliative treatment. And you're right, the numbers have dropped quite a bit, but it is diluted by massive screening and therefore early diagnosis of cancers that may or may not be so dangerous and that need urgent treatment. And therefore, the number of people who has advanced cancer, absolute number, is still pretty high, even though the percentage has come down.
Now, Chris, what are some of the people who are at most risk, and what are the red flags that they should be watching out?
So there's ongoing continuous debate about population screening, like mammography for breast. Everybody comes for a mammography because it is, advantageous to your health. But prostate cancer is different, and the number needed to treat so far, is in the thousands to be screened. So international guidelines are still saying that one should not just go to, in Singapore, a HDB block and pull out all the men and do PSA on them. And we still adhere to that guideline because, as I said, there's a lot of worries, a lot of treatment-related more side effects, if it is overdone. So to answer your question specifically, the guideline says that if you have family history, if one or more of your immediate relatives that is in your bloodline has prostate cancer, especially if they are diagnosed at the age of 65 and below, that means young relatives with prostate cancer. If you're one or two of them, I think by the age you reach 45, you should get a PSA. If you are Afrikaner descent, Afro-American in the US, it is also additional risk, but that's not so common in Singapore or Malaysia.
Now, Nasir, I want to bring the audience attention now to the hashtag Only Men Can campaign organized by the Urological Cancer Trust Fund of University Malaysia. Now, you've just joined the board of this trust fund, and you've been working in tandem with Professor Dr. Adiba to advocate the awareness of prostate cancer. Could you tell us a little bit more about your involvement and what this campaign is all about?
Sure. When I came back after my surgery, I basically decided I should try and help out. So I called a friend who then brought a whole lot of urologists to my house, and they told me of the situation in Malaysia, and they said there's lots I can do to help. So I stepped up, launched this Only Men Can campaign, joined the board. From various sources to basically, first of all, in sort of November 2020, we had our first round of promoting this Only Men Can campaign. And, the first round was basically, me going on stage, even on these very, very Malay mass programs and talking about orgasms, because I felt that I needed to shock the audience way. It's just not been done. And then this next phase now, we're talking about basically screening as much as we can. I mean, I agree with Chris in terms of, targeting the high risk. Generally, we talk about men 50 to 70 with, higher number of relatives, etc. The other issue is, of course, the cost. Malaysia is a big country, and who can bear the cost of regular screening? And the third thing we're doing is actually we've got what we call PCAT, which is prostate cancer advanced training, which we are pushing out online to medical doctors. Because it's all very well getting tested, but are doctors giving the right advice based on the test? Because as you know, PSA, less than half of those kind of detected as positive, if you like, would require proper treatment. So this is an issue which complicates the way you handle prostate cancer.
And also one of the things is, particularly in a Malaysian context, the GP is probably the primary source where patients can probably get early detection.
Yes.
And that's I think the challenge, because we are a larger country compared to Singapore, and whether it's at a district hospital level in the rural areas or at a local GP level in an urban area, that's where the fight has to be taken to that level first.
Totally agree. But one issue we have is, of course, there's no way to force doctors to take up our program. We've really been struggling to get signups. I think we've only had like less than 1,000 GPs actually signing up for this PCAT. So this is one thing we need to ramp up. We're talking to the health ministry whether they can provide some help there.
Now, Chris, in a Singapore context, how does the government basically advocate reducing the number, or what are the strategies that the Ministry of Health of Singapore is advocating in terms of reducing or increasing the number perhaps of men who are screened?
Well, we have a subsidized screening advocated by Ministry of Health, but it is for the chronic diseases. It's for diabetes, hypertension, cholesterol, and that is a $5 exercise. But because of whatever is existing in the international guideline, the Prostate Awareness Month, which has been going on in Singapore for the longest time, since I was the president of the Urological Association, we launched, an annual prostate awareness event that offer, free screening. That is it's not a population screening. It's for people who hear about this, have a discussion, understand the pros and cons of the screening, knowing whether they are high risk or not, that come forward. So it's by no means, pulling every man off the HDB block to screen them for diabetes and hypertension. So we are kind of trying to find a middle path where it is made available, but not the population screening.
Now, Tan Sri, in the Malaysian context, what is planned for Prostate Cancer Month? I believe it's in November this year.
Well, actually, we focused on November in the past couple of years, but we've decided that we're going to do it throughout the year. So we're not going to be as prominent in November. We're actually going to be more regular. I don't think we need to wait for November to get the publicity out. The other thing is just to mention is that we also want to encourage not just men to listen, but also spouses and children they should worry for their fathers and other elderly relatives on this issue and push them.
Men tend to be
especially daughters.
Especially daughters, yeah, especially daughters. And the other thing is actually to take out the fear, because I mean there's been a lot of fear about the treatment and the after effects, like your sexual health, etc., etc. And I've been trying to tell people that actually, at least in my case, everything was fine. Everything got back to normal. pretty much. There's nothing to fear. Medicine is advanced so much now that I think there's a high chance that you live a perfectly normal life after. I had a friend of mine the other day, and I knew his PSA was high, so I kept saying, "Why haven't you actually gotten the treatment?" And he said, "Look, Nazir, I need to tell you, I need to admit to you." I said, "What?" "I have a very young wife." I said, "That's not a good reason to fear." I said, "You don't want her to lose you when she's still young. That's the bigger fear."
Gentlemen, this has been a fascinating conversation. But before we leave, any final thoughts you'd like to leave the audience with? And we'll start with Chris.
Yeah, so I'll go back to the fact that man, is an enigma, and we always find excuse to put family and country and community before self. And so I agree with Tan Sri that work through the family. The family members are very important to support the man, the decision to either seek treatment, when you're diagnosed. It is okay, we are supporting you. It is okay if you are reluctant to go, but we keep on nagging you, and until you finally submit, which they are very good at doing anyway. So that's point number one. Point number two is, indeed, when I was training, prostate cancer treatment is very limited. Today, every other week, there's a new discovery, there's new options that are available. And most of them, would do almost wonders for a disease that used to be difficult to treat. So, do come forward.
Now, Tan Sri, final thoughts from you?
Just to highlight that, if you discover prostate cancer early, chances of survival are over 90%. If you discover it late, it's maybe less than 20%. And that is the statistic that should encourage you to find out whether you have prostate cancer. And we don't want everyone to rush and test PSA all the time. But I think if you are high risk, over 50 to 70, you should really be conscious about it and talk to your doctor and find out whether you should test and how regularly you should test. I am here. I'm quite convinced that I'm really here because I got lucky. I don't think it should just be luck. You should make your own luck.
That's all that we have for you for this particular show this evening. I do wish you all the best in terms of understanding this item a little bit better. Just go on to Health and Wellness over at BizTech Asia or Health Matters on Astro AWANI. There's a lot of resources that can be found on either sites. Also, enjoy your weekend. Until then, thanks very much for watching. Goodbye.